Episode 4 of the Sports Den, and this is a big one. This is probably the look. If you're looking for the entire calendar year for this podcast, this is the one you want to watch because we are going to go through the brackets for the state basketball tournament, which start this weekend. And look, I'm excited about it, but to James, this is Christmas,
Oh, it
Easter
is.
Sunday, the 4th of July,
My
Hanukkah,
birthday.
the Game 7, the Olympics. It's everything wrapped up into one. So it's going to
And I'm already
be,
trying to figure out what I'm gonna be wearing
yeah,
next week.
yeah. Well,
But
hopefully, yeah,
5 days
hopefully,
of dressing up.
yeah, hopefully I'm healthy by then because, of course, I went into the newsroom for the first time in months yesterday just to show my face, make sure that I was still employed, and then I got sick. So that's what I get for going into our office. But
Oh, come on, well, nobody wants to hear how you're about to die. They want to know about the brackets.
right. All right, so we are going to go through every bracket, 10 brackets, and that includes we're going to fly right through the 1A brackets, even though there are no northern teams in there. And then the 5A girls bracket doesn't have any northern teams in there, but we're going to go through those too anyway, just for the heck of it. What do you say?
Dude, all I know is that I'm just choosing Roy Mosquito for just for my 2 brackets there.
All right.
I'm
Well,
giving
let's
it.
start
I'm giving it
there.
like 10 seconds.
Let's start there. 1A girls. What do you see?
I just said it, Roy Mosquito. Just because they're the blue, I do it in honor of your wife's alma mater, Santa Fe Prep. They used to be the
Yeah.
blue before they became the Blue Griffins, and I'm like, why not, man? Just go with the blue.
Yeah, they're undefeated too. That's an easy pick.
That's
You know,
true.
when you look at some of these brackets, you think, oh, that team's lost 5 games. Maybe they could be had. Yeah, this team's pretty good. So to me, I think that's the easy pick. I think they actually beat. Who did I have? I filled out brackets, by the way.
Wow, I thought I was the one that was supposed to be all geeked up about this.
Oh,
You're the one that's stealing my thunder.
well, I was trying to survive this morning. Here I am dying of that disease that's going through Africa right now, and I was like, well, I better do something productive before I go. But I haven't beaten Fort Sumner House, one of those teams. Another one of those teams. So you got Roy Mascaro against Fort Sumner House. I
I
don't even
know.
know what Fort Sumner House is called.
I think I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I know that issue came up when they won state. I think about 6 years ago. When I think they're still the Vixens, just because it's primarily Fort Sumner because House is really small. But one thing I did notice was just look, and I think this is just kind of endemic of where small schools are. But we had 3 schools on the girls' side that are co-op teams. You had
Yeah,
Corona Vaughn, Fort Sumner House, and then obviously Roy Mosquito. And I just think it just kind of shows you just kind of where small schools are, and that's another discussion that we could talk about too. Just in talking with people in Pecos and Mora and Penasco,
mm-hmm.
the small towns in New Mexico are getting even smaller, and I mean
Yeah.
literally just I think you're seeing the death of small towns across the state here, and this is the result of it.
Yeah, well, I've been through House, and House is almost literally named appropriately. It's a building. It's like a little
Yeah.
tiny town. Like, how many kids are you getting from House? But yeah, it's all right. Let's
Yeah.
go to 2A girls. Who do you have? I think in fact I know. I think I know who you're going to pick here.
Who am I gonna pick?
Yeah, because you have a soft spot for Mesa Vista. I think you're going to pick them.
Well, I love what Jesse's done there, and he's done a great job turning that program around to where they've been one of the best teams in 2A. And really, I mean, that's kind of this, that should be the story that this program that they lost their coach 4 years ago during the worst part of COVID, and
Yeah.
then they kind of used him as a motivating tool to get here. I think they'll make it to the championship game. If you've noticed, every year that they've made it to state, they've advanced one round further. And last year they got to the semis. So I think logically that seems to suggest that they get to the championship game, which then means they're actually probably going to beat the team that I actually think is actually my favorite, which is the Pecos Panthers. I think they have clearly the best player I think in 2A and Natalia Stout. I mean, just talk about an amazing player. She's 5'7", 5'8". She can play in the low post. She can handle the ball. She can shoot. She goes. Pecos goes as she goes. But I just think going up against Mesa Vista, especially with a lot of these girls, with it being the last real opportunity for that senior class that's been there for about 5 years now. I mean, this is their opportunity to win the state title. So I think they make it to the championship game. But I think the problem is Tatum is really good, and that's going to be a tough game for him. I'll pick Tatum. in that situation, just because, Tatum's got size, they're physical, they've got good guards. That's the recipe to beat Mesa Vista is if you can get them to slow down a little bit and play more of a half court set, and if you can beat them up inside, that's kind of the recipe to beat them. And hopefully, I'm wrong. I think this is the best Mesa Vista team that Jesse Boys has had since he's been there. But I just don't. I think they get to the championship game at the very least.
All right, I got a homer pick. I picked
Uh-oh.
McCurdy to beat Tucumcari as a 12-5. It's probably not going to happen.
Wow.
But the historically in the NCAA tournament, the 12-5 is pretty good. So it's a shot in the dark. What the heck?
Actually, that's a good pick. I would if I was going to pick a 12-5 matchup that could go that way, that would be one of them.
Yeah. Well, I actually have Mesa Vista winning. I have them beating Tatum, but I have Pecos getting knocked out in the quarterfinals against Texaco. And the reason I say that is because Texaco is just one of those eastern part of the state teams.
Oh, dude. They're not even getting out of the first round. I guarantee it.
You have Texaco losing to Mescalero Apache?
They lost their best player.
No, they're going to win. They're going to knock out Pecos. Watch.
Well, no. They couldn't even beat Eunice in their own district tournament. So they're really struggling right now. I just don't see. I mean, when you lose your best player that late in the year, it's really hard to recover. I mean, unless you've got a good balanced team, you kind of struggle to kind of find pieces to replace what you're losing there. And because she was a big girl, that takes a big cog out of what Texaco has done, and they haven't been able to quite figure it out. They get to the quarters, that's great, but I just don't see them getting past Pecos in the quarters after that.
Just the fact that that Texaco's best players got knocked out for the season is amazing.
Well, I got to thank Carl Morano for that. I talked to him a few weeks ago, and he gave me the scoop on that, and I was like, "Oops, well, that's a good thing to know and keep it in the back of your head there."
All right, now 3A girls. This is probably the most exciting girls bracket out of all of them because there's a lot of teams in our area. What are you looking at there?
I'm gonna say this is the year that the North finally beats the Northwest. I think West Las Vegas will beat Navajo Prep in the championship game. It'll be the third time that they've played each other, and they played each other during the year. And the funny thing was when they played the first time, they both played in the sunshine bracket of the Alamada's tournament because West, after winning their own tournament, they turn around and play West Mesa in the first round, and they got beat by 18 after West Mesa had finished 8th at Capital City's tournament the week before. Talk about a total 180 with West Mesa because they ended up winning the Alamada's tournament. But so they played each other there, and West beat them by 8, and then they turn around and beat them, or Navajo Prep beat them at their place by 11. And Rainey Chris has done a heck of a job with that program. They lost a lot of really good players from last year's team, and I think they needed that first month to really get the chemistry together, and they've been playing really well. As a matter of fact, I think they've won like 13 out of 14 or 14 in a row. I forget what it is, but they're on a roll right now, and I think they're definitely the team to beat.
Yeah, and they got St. Mike's in the first round. St. Mike's is a 16 seed, but they're not a 16 seed. St. Mike's could easily be an 11 or even a 10. But that said, they're still going to beat St. Mike's. St. Mike's, that's a tough place to go up to the Four Corners. And
it is. And the sad part about St. Mike's was if you watch the NMAA video, you saw how they lost every single tiebreaker, I think from the 12 seed all the way down to 15, and then finally got in as a 16 seed. So really, you're looking at probably a team that really was a 12 or a 13 seed playing at the 16 seed level. And I'd give them a puncher's chance. I mean, they've played well over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, they beat Santa Fe Indian School, although Indian School didn't have Cadence Riley for that game. They almost beat Robertson twice, but both times Robertson didn't have Taylor Quintana, who tore her knee and is done for the year. And they played West to a 3-point game at the half. They're capable of playing with Navajo Prep, so I give them a chance, but they got to be able to knock down shots, and that's been their biggest problem, and taking care of the ball. Those are the 2 issues that they've had all year long.
Well, I've got 3 of the 4 teams from that northern district in the semifinals. I have Robertson playing Navajo Prep. I think Robertson's going to knock them off. I think Robertson's going to get to the championship game, and I have West playing the Indian School. And as much as you want the Indian School to climb over that hump and beat West Las Vegas, they've lost to them 4 times, and the most decisive loss they just had was in a championship game a few days ago. So,
yeah. Do you just like picking the teams that lost their best player just before the season began, just before the end of the season.
It's going to be West Las Vegas Robertson in the
Oh,
state championship game. And it's going to be just a horribly ugly game where there's going to be bad officiating and there's going to be terrible shot selection. And it's going to be one of those 38-34 kind of games that you walk out of there thinking, I need to go take a nap because that was terrible. So, but I'm picking West Las Vegas to win the whole thing. West Las Vegas they're long overdue for a championship. I'm picking them.
Agreed. Unfortunately, I'm not going with you there with the Robertson team. I think if they get to the semis, that should be, that should be a feather in their cap considering what they've gone through. They like I said, you lose your best player, 2 weeks before the season ended. And then, they were down to 7 players when they faced Santa Fe Indian School in the district semifinal because one of their big girl got suspended for a game for punching a St. Mike's player the night before.
Prison rules.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. I give them a shot because of this. The JV squad that Magic has there. They won the district tournament last week. He's bringing up 5 of those girls, and they're pretty solid players. He's got a lot of depth, even down into the JV level. And some of those girls, he's just looking to get 3 or 4 minutes out of them just to give his starters a rest. If he can get that out of them, they might be able to overcome that because they've got good pieces there. With Taylor Quintana, they had a really strong backcourt. It's not as strong as it would have been with her there now, but guards are dime a dozen, at Robertson, and so they should be able to find a couple of decent players coming up to help them out.
And it's kind of a stinker that the semifinals and quarterfinals are over at the Star Center or at the
Center.
Yeah. You can't get.
Remember the days when it used to be in the pit, boy, and those games were packed.
Yeah.
You had a hell of a lot more people there than you did for the 5A games.
Yeah. All right, the Class 4A bracket, also known as the Kirtland Central bracket. Let me guess, you're picking Kirtland Central. Yeah,
I'm going to do that. Although Gallup beat him in the district tournament, so they finally kind of got that monkey off their back. But that's been their problem over the last 2 years. They have not been able to beat Kirtland Central when it matters. And I just don't see them doing that this year again, just because, Kirtland Central seems to have some sort of hex on them. They beat them pretty good during the regular season. And then obviously the third matchup, it was a 4-point game. So, Gallup has a shot. And when I saw him in December at the Ben Lujan tournament, I was really impressed with them. They've got some really good guards. They've got some bigs. I got some really good size. They just play hard and fast and, just relentless. They're just relentless on the floor. But I think part of the problem is that their guards are a little small. So that kind of makes them a little susceptible to bigger guards. And I think, Kirtland Central has been able to capitalize on that. And their bigs, while they're big, they're not necessarily fast. And so if you can beat them down court, you're probably going to get yourself some easy buckets. And I think that's how Kirtland Central's been able to beat them.
Yeah, 2 local teams in there, Pewaukee and Espanola. How do you see them doing?
I think Pewaukee's got a decent shot of actually both of them have got a decent shot.
I agree.
Advancing past the first round. St. Pius, that's a solid team that Pewaukee's going to play. But Pewaukee needs to shoot the ball well, and that's kind of been their biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
They do not they're not good shooters. They're streaky shooters, but when they're off, they're really bad. So they need to have a really good game offensively to do that. And Espanola, their problem is they just lack size. He's got some solid players. That's a solid group that Ray Romero has, and I wouldn't be surprised if they can. Again, they got to knock down threes in order to be able to beat Deming. If they can do that, they got a shot. But I think this is a year where there's a good chance that both of those teams see their season end in the first round.
I have Pewaukee beating St. Pius just because I think they're going to go down.
You're such a homer. Are you getting? Did Bobby pay you to do that?
They did, yeah. Well, like that, and I'm kind of afraid of him too. He might beat me up if But I have Espanola winning in the first round too. I think, man, that's the only problem is that's a long drive to get down to Deming, and so how you handle those long road trips. But I have Pewaukee and Espanola both advancing to the quarterfinals. But yeah, Kirtland Central and Gallup. And that Friday night championship game, well, you'll probably have 14,000 people.
14,000 at least, yeah. That'll be the last game of the night too. And that'll follow the 2A game where if you end up with Mesa or Pecos there, you're probably going to see a pretty good crowd there too. So that place is going to be packed by the fourth quarter of that 2A game, just in preparation for the 4A.
Yep. All right. Class 5A bracket. Santa Fe High and Capital did not make the state tournament this year, but who do you see winning 5A?
I'm still going with Santa Fe High and Capital playing in the championship game. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
That's a true state championship game.
They should have the NIT for girls basketball. They just do that.
Yeah, they should for the 17th best team in each class.
Yeah.
It's going to be Sandy and Hobbs.
Yeah.
They clearly have shown that they're the two best teams in the state. And I think that's how it's going to roll in this tournament. And I see Sandia winning. I think they'll repeat as state champs.
I agree, because they open their season with a win against Hobbs. I think they end their season the same way.
Yeah, although that was a good game. I mean, it was a close battle, and I think Sandia Hobbs had to rally there late in order to make it close. So,
all right, 1A boys. We're off to the boys' side now, and I know even less about boys 1A basketball than I do about being an astronaut. So, who do you see doing what there?
I'm going to go with my standby. I'm going to go with Roy Mosquito on the boys. I got to hit one of those at least. So
yeah. Roy Mosquito, golly, I don't think I even have them getting out of the first round. No, do I?
They're the 5 seed, dude. Wow, you're crazy. You go
Actually,
12.
I'm getting to the
You're supposed to do this for the NCAA tournament, not for the state basketball.
I'm getting to semis and losing to Logan.
Do you have every 12 seed winning in all your brackets? Is that why?
Yeah. Well, I think Logan's going to win because that's the guy with the big knives out of his hands, right? He's a superhero. I think that guy.
Yeah. Oh, are we talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. That's a dad joke right there. Yeah, I have Logan beating Fort Sumner House. All right, that's enough at 1A. 2A.
All right.
2A should be a fun bracket for us because there's some teams.
2A is going to be a really good bracket. I think a lot of people feel like Texaco is the team to beat, and I think they are. They've got size. They've got a really good shooter. They like to play a little more up tempo, and I think that's something that they learned just from playing in the same district with Pecos for all those years. They've kind of developed that style to go along with just being a big, strong, physical team. I see them getting to the championship game, and I think they'll play Mesa Vista. I like Jordan Gallegos, and I like that team. They play really good, disciplined basketball, and Jordan's just he's a great ball player, very unselfish. While he's 6'3", he can handle the ball well. He can shoot. And he's also a force down low, and he's added about 10, 15 pounds, so he's a lot stronger than he was even last year. So I really see that coming down to the 1 versus the 3, and I'll take Mesa Vista in this one. I think Tomas Vigil, he's been one of my favorite coaches for the longest time, and he's come close to getting to the championship game, and I think finally now that he knocks that door down and gets there, they'll bring home a blue trophy.
I have Pecos getting the semifinals, but not getting past.
Yeah,
Texaco.
I do too.
Yeah, you're right. I do agree with Mesa Vista. I think they get to the championship game but lose to Texaco. Like Texaco's just had. You look at everything. I actually did look up their schedule, and I did a little bit of a deep dive on them. When you're going 25-2, it's like you've handled everything that's been thrown at you, and they're clearly.
And they played up too in that non-district schedule. I mean, they played some 4A and 3E schools there, so they're battle tested.
Yeah, absolutely. When you play in some of these remote parts of the state, you're traveling a lot, and you get some adversity. So I like that part about them. All right, 3A. 3A is going to be a really good bracket because District 2 AAA is loaded this year.
It is. We could conceivably, well, no, we couldn't conceivably because I forget that West Las Vegas being a 7, we'll have to run into Robertson in the 7-2. But there was a moment where I really thought District 2 AAA could have all 4 semifinal spots, depending on how the bracket played out. Mm-hmm. I was really surprised that Indian School ended up as a 6 seed, but I had somebody kind of break down how Indian School ended up at the 6 instead of the 4. I guess that's how it goes, because I was really shocked that Tularosa ended up with 4, even though Indian School did beat them head to head. But I think St. Mike's, Indian School, and Robertson make it to the semifinals. And I mean, let's be honest here. I think it's Robertson, St. Mike's. I think everybody's expecting that, and especially after the way Robertson's played the last 2 times against St. Michael's, I think suddenly people realize, oh, Robertson's kind of reinvented themselves. They're not a team that's running and pressing like they did before when Branch was there. They beat St. Mike's by playing more of a half-court game. They played really good half-court defense. Their help side, the help side defense that they've done over the last couple of games against St. Mike's has been pretty impressive. They forced the Horsemen to get their points from further and further out. And the one weakness St. Mike's has is they're not good perimeter shooters or even shooters outside of 10, 15 feet. Um, they live off of getting points off of turnovers and getting the ball inside. And when you take those two things away from them, that's where they struggle. I think in my column today that I wrote, I noted that St. Mike's averages 16 steals a game, but against Robertson, they averaged 9 in all 3 games. That's even the game that they lost. Or the last 3 games, I should say. Or no, that's right. The 3 games that they played. They only averaged 9. The reason why they beat Robertson by 20 is that Robertson had a horrible shooting game. But the other 2 games, Robertson played much better in those, and I think it's going to come down to that. And if Robertson can be patient and do the things that they've done well and force St. Mike's to shoot the ball, I think they got a decent shot of beating them. It's a toss up, and part of me thinks that St. Mike's will figure something out. But at the same time, until they do, I kind of got to go with the hot hand, and I feel like Robertson's going to get that state title this year.
Yeah, I'm going to go along with that too. I have St. Mike's playing Robertson in the championship game, and look, you go into Santa Fe and you beat St. Mike's twice on their home floor.
That's the big thing. It's not like they did it in Vegas.
Yeah, after all that stuff that went on, that says something. It says something about the character of your team and how you handle things. I like Robertson a lot, so I think they win this thing. They're a team on a mission.
And I've always been a big believer that teams that win the state tournament are the ones that have the best guards, the best guard combination. And to me, nothing against Sabi and Reed. I think they're good, solid guards. But, when you look at Jesse James, George Smith, Nathaniel Gonzalez there, Robertson has better guards, and they're better shooters and they're better scorers, from the perimeter. And that's what you kind of need, because you want to stretch St. Mike's defense out so that way you can open up those driving lanes, and they do a great job of that.
All right, 4A boys. This is another bracket that's got a couple of northern teams in there.
Yes, they do.
Love it. Espanola Valley Sundale is doing.
Well, I think this team has a really good shot of getting to the championship game. I think the one stumbling block that they might have will be Artesia, just because Artesia has a lot of size, and that makes them a hard matchup for Espanola, especially after losing Kyle Coffeen to I believe it was a broken arm 2 weeks ago. He was one of their guys that brought him some size and some length, and they could actually match up better. But without him, Espanola has had to adjust a little bit how they play other teams. And one of the problems that they had against Taos was they couldn't stop Malachi Eli. He had 20 points, and they had 5'9", 5'10" guys trying to defend a 6'5" guy, and it was a recipe for disaster. If Espanola can shoot well, and if they can hit threes consistently, they hit 7 threes in the first half against Taos, and then they hit 3 the rest of the way. If they can hit threes consistently, I think they got a shot to get into the championship game, and I think it'll be them against. I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to say Academy. I know I gave some people a hard time because everybody was picking Academy to get through that side of the bracket without realizing they lost to Pewaukee. But I think they'll probably beat Pewaukee in the rematch if they see each other again. But I like Academy. They're a team that's very physical. They've got really good post players, and they've got some good guards, and they can play any kind of style. I think Academy will get through that side. But I think when you put Sun Devil Nation in a state championship game and the pit floor, and there's something magical that usually happens there. So I'm gonna go say it's Espanola, and I say Joey Trujillo rides off into the sunset with the state championship game.
Yeah, he's not quitting. He wouldn't do that. He'd want to come back for more.
Oh, no, he would not with the mess that's going on there. So
he's a glutton for punishment. He'll go to some other school that's got just as much the angst from all the fans and the administration. So yeah, I love the guy to death.
You mean like Santa Fe High?
Yeah, exactly. But I have Espanola winning the whole thing. I have him beating St. Pius in the championship game. I do have Pewaukee getting into the quarterfinals, but this is a bracket where 6 teams, maybe 7, could win this whole thing. It's a very, very balanced bracket.
I would say it's probably more like 11 or 12. Yeah. I think the top 12 teams could probably could have a legitimate shot at winning it all. Even Taos. Taos. Yeah. They've got some really good pieces. They've lost a lot of close games, and they lost a lot of tough games, and that's partly why they ended up as a 12 seed. And they beat Pewaukee, last week in the district semifinals. If they can shoot well, and they showed in the second half, well, when they shoot well, their defense is really good. And a lot of that is because of Eli, because he's a guy that makes guys when guys get inside the paint, makes them alter their shots and they miss him. I mean, he ended up with like 5 blocks in that game against Espanola. So I could see them doing some damage. But I also like Milwaukee just because they're kind of like a lot of the teams that Ryan Cordova had when he was coaching at Northern New Mexico. Just got a lot of depth, and he can run 10, 11, 12 guys out there, and he wants to play a game in the 60s and 70s. And I think if especially on the pit floor, where there's a little bit more width and length to that court. Their speed might be might give them an advantage that other teams don't have.
All right, what the 4A bracket is to girls, the 5A bracket is to the boys' side. It seems like
yeah,
this is an overwhelming favorite to win in 5A. But will you go out on a limb and make a huge call and say someone other than Volcano Vista wins 5A boys?
Sandia. I really do think. I think this might be the year. Sandia finally gets over on them. I think they match up better with them this year than they did the last couple of years. I've seen them a couple of times. They've got some decent size, and I think they match up better against Volcano Vista than they did maybe even last year. Their thing is they've got to be able to knock down shots. They love to shoot threes, and if they can, they got to hit probably about 10 to 13 threes to have a shot at beating Volcano Vista. But if they do that, I think they've got a really good shot. I feel like they can do that. And, for once, somebody's got to put Greg in his place, man. And who better than little brother Danny?
Yeah. Well, Volcano's going to win. I think they actually beat Sandia. I think it'll be a game like they had last year or the year before, where it was Sandia was up almost the entire game, and then Volcano hit a 3 midway through the fourth quarter, and it just completely turned it around.
Yeah.
You can tell Sandia was playing to protect a 2, 3, 4 point lead. And as soon as that lead evaporated, Volcano started running, and it was over. The game was completely out of hand. So I think Volcano wins the whole thing. How do you see the Demons doing? I mean, we didn't even touch the Demons.
I think they got a decent shot against Albuquerque High. That's a good matchup. I think they're both very similar. Albuquerque Highs, they're not big like some of the other 5A teams, but they've got a lot of good shooters. Saw them during the Stu Clark tournament, and I was impressed with them. I think they've got a team that's capable of making another Final Four run like they did last year, especially if they can knock down shots from the perimeter. I think it's going to be a good close game. I think Albuquerque High probably pulls it out in the last couple of minutes. And in all honesty, in that situation, I think that'd be a great way for Santa Fe High to kind of bow out of this season. I think the last 3 games or really the last 4 games. It's not been representative of how well they had played up until that point. And even if they do lose, I think if they play better and if they play a good game and you end up losing maybe on the last second shot, or you lose by 4 or 5, there's no reason to hang their heads, because it's a lot better than how they looked against El Dorado. They just look like they weren't there. They look like they were kind of mentally maybe checked out. And I think even if you ask Cisco Rivera, their head coach, I think the loss to La Cueva really lingered. Because I think they really felt like they had a shot at winning the district title outright. And then when they lost that game, you kind of lose that motivation to try to, salvage a little bit of your season there, because they still could have finished in a tie and played for a playoff game, but they just looked like they weren't there mentally. And I think they'll rebound and have a much better game.
Well, it all starts Friday, 40 girls games, then 40 boys games on Saturday.
That's right.
So it's a lot of basketball. And then it switches over into the metro area on Tuesday. So, get your big boy pants on. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be
Thankfully, we only have to worry about Rio Rancho in the pit then.
Right, exactly. Bernalillo this year, because Bernalillo is always kind of a mess.
Yes, it is.
Parking and the whole thing. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, talk about the Lobos. There's a coach with the rumor mill floating around about him. So we'll get into the Richard Pitino stuff. And then the UNM plays a couple of big games this week. They can clinch the Mountain West with 1 win or a Colorado State loss. So we'll get into that when we come right back. All right, we're in the home stretch of the college basketball regular season. 2 games left at the time that we're recording this for the University of New Mexico men's basketball team. They played Nevada on Tuesday night. Then Friday night, senior night in the pit, a sold-out game. They just announced that on Monday against UNLV. And then it's off to the Mountain West Tournament, where the Lobos are assured of at least the 1 or 2 seed. They can clinch the 1 seed with a win against Nevada or a win against UNLV or a loss by Colorado State, CSU is the only team that can catch them for that top seed. So right now, it's looking more and more like UNM is going to the NCAA tournament for a second straight season, which is good news for all the Lobo fans who live and die by their team, including my beautiful wife, Sarah, who is the biggest Lobo fan I know. But dude, we face the very realistic chance of not having a basketball coach at the top of the program in about 3 weeks. Reports came out this week that Richard Pitino, the head coach at UNM, had been in contact with the University of Utah, which just fired their coach, Craig Smith, the former Mountain West guy. So that's a Big 12 program with deep pockets in a city that's going to host the Winter Olympics here in a few years. There's a lot of money there and some decent tradition, but you're in the Big 12. So whether it's Utah or Florida State or some school in the Big 12 or the ACC, I think there's a very, very good chance Richard Pitino packs his bags and heads out the door. And look, you cannot blame the guy for leaving. He put in 4 good years here, and he's done everything he can to bring the fans back, to bring the program back. But at the same time, man, it's gonna rip the hearts out of Lobo fans everywhere.
Oh, it will. It will. And you glossed over the biggest fish out there, which is Indiana. I mean, come on, it just screams tradition and it screams Richard Pitino. So I that's my money. That's where I'm putting my money on is that he ends up at Indiana. Of course, I said he was going to go to Miami, and then they filled that spot. So what do I know?
Yeah, that's true. And that's the thing is, I think he would love to be in the Big East with his dad, but I just don't know if the Big East is going to have any coaching vacancies. They had a lot of turnover last year, and I just don't see another program in that league turning over right now. So if there's a saving grace, maybe that's it. Maybe he just waits out the Providence job because he went to school at Providence. And look, the Lobos have a chance if they get in the NCAA tournament. One of the regional sites is in Providence, so that could be his homecoming, his precursor to a job.
His resume there while he's there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's been a good season for this team. I know people were kind of freaking out a little bit when they went on the road, lost to San Diego State and Boise State, 2 exceptionally good teams that were NCAA tournament quality. But this team it's probably, you can make the case it's the best Lobo basketball team they've had since that Steve Alford year where they went to the NCAA tournament as a 3 seed and lost to Harvard.
Don't say it.
Yeah.
Oh God, you just have to bring back bad memories, don't you?
Yeah, so it's been a good run, and it's gonna be a stinker. But look, I think there are a couple of factors which is gonna drive him out the door. If not now, then definitely next year. It's the collapse of the Mountain West or the reorganization of the Mountain West. All the best programs are basically leaving to reform the Pac-12, and you've bandaged them with a bunch of teams, and it's just not the league that it was when he first got here. And so I think he sees the bigger picture. He wants to be in a more competitive basketball league.
Yeah, I mean, but who's to say too? I mean, there's already been some rumblings out there that maybe the door might be open to a merger between the reconstituted Pac-12, or what we just call the Pac-2 for right now, and the Mountain West. And there are I think there's some analysis out there that's showing whatever the Pac-2 thought they're going to get in terms of their from their media package is not anywhere near what they thought it was going to be. As a matter of fact, I'm hearing it's probably going to be along the lines of what the Mountain West would have gotten if they had stayed in its current composition. Mm-hmm. So I think there might be something there to where both conferences realize, instead of trying to kill each other, maybe we need to join forces and make maybe the best non-power conference out there, because that's really what they should be doing. And I think you've been one that's been beating that drum. Since these schools started leaving is, why go? Because you're going to end up probably right back. You're not going into a better situation. You're going into the same one that you're in right now.
Yeah, we've talked about this too in the previous weeks in this podcast. But there are some things that UNM absolutely has to do to make this program relevant. And look, it's relevant already, but we're talking football. We're talking every sport out there with the House versus the NCAA settlement coming up this summer, presumably, where you're going to share revenue. UNM doesn't generate a lot of revenue when it comes to ticket sales.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And that's going to be its biggest problem, is that it can't compete with those likes. And, the Hail Mary of maybe getting a bid to the Big 12, that horse left a long time ago. There's no way that they're, the longer it takes to get to that point, the further away they're going to be. I mean, it's never going to happen. So you might as well try to make do with what you have right now. And big and I think this as well as anybody else. As great as basketball is, and as much as it drives, the conversation here in Albuquerque and the revenue too for the university, it can't be that way anymore. I mean, you got to hitch your wagons to football, and you have to make the football program better if you want to get out of where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as the football program's, the second fiddle in this state and at this school, that's what they're going to be. They're going to be a nice basketball school. They're going to be Gonzaga without the prestige of Gonzaga.
Yeah, the NIL collective, really NIL, I think you're going to start to see those going away in the next year or two. It's just such a quickly evolving process where NIL is going to get folded into the actual school, the athletic department. Because right now the NIL is competing against the Lobo club at UNM for booster donations. And so the NIL is trying to raise money for athletes, but the Lobo club's trying to raise money for scholarships.
The department, yeah.
And so you're going to the same people and you're saying, hey, why don't you ante up? Well, they're like, well, the NIL guy was just here 5 minutes ago asking for a donation too.
Sorry, bud, you're a little late, right?
Yeah. And the UNM does have a very strong NIL. The executive director for the collective, Kurt Roth, he's done an exceptional job with keeping some of these athletes around. But look, the going rate for a really good Division I basketball player is $250,000 a year, which is insane. Yeah, Donovan Dent could command $1 million next season.
Oh shoot! That isn't that what they said that Toppin got to go to Tech?
$1 million to go to Texas Tech. Just imagine how good UNM would be had Toppin stayed around. And then look, Mashburn had one foot out the door from really probably February on when he was here. Yeah. Mashburn had just he'd been burned out by UNM because he kept referring to text messages and DMs that he was getting on social media after a poor game. Yeah, and it was presumably from people betting on games who were criticizing him and just being rude about it. And so he just needed a change of pace. And so, look, you go to Temple, which is in the middle of Philadelphia. You think it's a bad spot to go to, but you're in the middle of a huge city. You're hiding in plain sight. Now the guy's averaging 22 points a game, where Toppin might actually be an All-American at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Just imagine if UNM had hung on to those guys. Of course, then you start the whole idea of the butterfly effect. If they keep Toppin here, do they get Jovan Milicevic? Are they able to bring in some of these guys? So, it's one thing leads to another, but either way, the bottom line is Pitino has brought in a huge amount of talent through UNM, and hopefully for Lobo fans, including my wife who's in the other room there, that their coach sticks around for at least another year.
Yeah, what are the odds right now you put at him sticking around at UNM for one more year at least?
I'd say that's like 40%. 40. And it's not that he dislikes New Mexico. It's not that he dislikes Albuquerque.
Yeah, he's got a better opportunity elsewhere. I mean, it's the same situation that Alfred was in 10 years ago when it happened.
And it's the same. Look, if all of us had an opportunity to go to a better situation, you just can't blame someone for trying to make your situation better. And so just go but Lobo fans will be bitter. They're still bitter about Craig Neal, and
they're always bitter about everything, man.
Yeah, but now that if Pitino leaves, who do you bring in? I know you were talking about Steve Alford coming back, and that's
all signs point to that. And I know sometimes the reunion is never quite the same the second time around, but he showed that. I mean, he still got his coach, still got the coaching chops. He did a really good job with Nevada. They were consistently one of the top programs in the state or in the country, the conference until this year.
Yeah.
And obviously, like you talked about before, the hole that they have at point guard really kind of hurt them. But you look at the rest of that team, it's not a bad team. They're just missing a piece. And I think he can still recruit and with the NIL situation here, I think it works for him to be able to find good talent to replace, because as we all know, if Pitino leaves, who's going out the door? I'm assuming Dent would be out the door. I'm assuming maybe Washington be out the door. Maybe a few of these other guys that just came in. It's going to be a different team than what we're going to see, even if Pitino's here. You're guaranteed that probably 5 or 6 of these guys are going to leave.
Happens every year.
Yeah. So,
But if
like giving Alfred that opportunity, I think would be great. And I think people have to accept the fact that whoever comes to UNM next, whether it's Alfred, whether whomever it is, this is a stepping stone program now. Yeah, somebody made the point that out of the last 40 years, I think only 2 coaches have actively left. Yeah, that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. For the near future. I think with the way college athletics, the landscape is changing. Coaches see this as an opportunity to get someplace else, and that's kind of where UNM is going to be.
Well, they could. I know Will Wade is. He's been mentioned a couple times. He's the head coach at McNeese.
Yes, let's just bring back Norm Ellenberg if you're going to bring Wade. Okay.
Will Wade has got some baggage to him, but
and let's forget about academics. Let's just pay him. Let's just make it above board and just not even bother with trying to follow NCAA rules.
How badly do you want to win? Then you could bring back Alford, but you have to have the caveat of Craig Neal does not. He's not allowed to bring his.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think isn't there a state law that prevents Neal from ever setting foot in the state?
I believe so. Yeah, and then Craig Smith, the guy just got fired at Utah. He loved the Mountain West. He was just a real down to earth, just really friendly guy. It just didn't work out for him, and he didn't get enough time at Utah. But like we're at least 2 weeks away from that. It just depends on how quickly the Lobos get knocked out of the NCAA tournament. But I tell you what, the second they leave that tournament, the second they lose, that's when the talk begins.
You're acting like it's a foregone conclusion that they're in. After last year, I'll wait until Sunday before I decide if they're in or not.
Yeah.
But to me, they're out until they're in.
There you go. Well, my clock says we've gone 42 minutes. That's a long podcast. But
that's an average one for us. Come on.
Our podcast is kicking butt though. So we've
it's funny. We keep getting asked to go shorter, but yet more people want to hear us blather.
Yeah, and we wind up talking before this thing even starts. We talk.
I know. So really, it's like we kill like about 90 minutes before we even. Yeah.
So, but next Tuesday we'll probably have to get together in the pit somewhere and just do.
Oh yeah. Well, that's going to be a problem though, because somebody's going to have to be at the pit. Somebody's going to have to be at the Star Center, because we're going to have to split our time, at those places, because we're going to have the 3A and 2A brackets, or 3A 2A brackets there, 4A bracket at the pit. Maybe. I mean, again, it depends. If Milwaukee and Espanola make it, we'll have to cover one of those. If not, then it's easy. We don't have to go to the pit unless we really just want to visit some place that we used to attend a lot.
Yeah.
Next time we go by Wednesday.
He's gonna have a Windsor knot.
That's right, man. Hey, go with your tried and true, man. I'm not gonna mess around with any of those other knots. Maybe I'll get a bow tie or something. Maybe I'll try that this year.
Yeah. All right, so that'll do it for this week. Episode 4 is in the books, and next week we'll do it at the state tournament. Lots and lots and lots of hoops, and then after that, the post hoops hangover. So
there you go.
I
say we do it from an empty pit the following Tuesday after that.
We should do that. Yeah.
I'll still wear my tie too. It'll just be like loosened up and everything. Yeah. I'll definitely look like I've been on a 72-hour bender by that point.
There you go. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next Tuesday or next week.
Next week.